time to dive into the For FF's Sake podcast. FF's Sake podcast. The place for your weekly dose of fantasy football advice, breakdown, and debate. Redraft, dynasty, sleepers, and buy or sell candidates. It all gets discussed right here. Now, let's go to your hosts, two guys that say the other is an idiot. Ian Steele and Evan Harris.
Welcome in to For FF's Sake. Evan Harris here, that guy right there, Ian Steele. And Ian, I think this is the first time in over a year, or right at a year, that we are on our podcast together. So there's that.
Yeah, maybe not quite a year, but yeah, it's been a while. It feels good. Feel good to be back.
Yeah. So we're back. We got a show for you guys, and we went back to the core of what For FF's Sake is. We're going to argue things for fantasy football's sake. And this is just a natural thing for us. It doesn't take a lot of prep for us to disagree, Ian. So we got a couple guys. Yeah. We got a randomizer spin wheel. How are you feeling about the code takes that you're about to spew out for us?
Well, I think history has proven otherwise, at least in our arguments, that it's usually, I would say, in the region of 80%. I'm right, you're wrong. So
this is, I would say I don't want to do an I told you so, but this is definitely the show for that. And I don't remember all of them because I'm sure there's plenty that I'm wrong on. But I'll never forget, even though I'm a big Rondale Moore stand for this year, last year telling you that he was going to be fourth on that team in targets and you telling me I was crazy. And I think he finished the season or either third or fourth in targets, very close. I think I said he was going to be fourth in targets for the first couple weeks, and he definitely was.
Yeah, well, you get one.
I'll take one. If we're about to talk about,
I said 80%. I give you a few in there.
We're about to talk about 6 players. If I get one of them right, I'm all right with that. Whatever, rock and roll. Let's just go.
Yeah, let's
all
go.
Right, so excited to bring this show to you guys, and let's no longer delay. We're gonna spin the old trusty wheel here, and you guys will see who we got as we go. I'm going to pop them up on the screen as they pop up for me. This is a long spin wheel. I mean, I just gator on that thing. Here we go. And how about Nyheim Hines? So Nyheim Hines is the first guy we're going to talk about. Ian, this was a love for me and I think hate for you. And love and hate are strong words. But as the old song goes, you really, really, really don't like them or something like that, right?
Yeah, something like that.
So Nyheim Hines at ADP, I think he's around 125. I should have saved the ADPs, but I didn't, and that's all the prep work. But let's start from there, and I'll let you take the floor on Nyheim Hines and why you don't like the ADP where he's going at right now.
Yeah, I just think personally, he's not a bad player, and he obviously shown out on occasions, especially 2 years ago when Jonathan Taylor was a rookie. They kind of leaned on him a little bit more. Jonathan Taylor really showed out last year. For me, I think the hype around him coming into this season is all around one statement by Frank Reich, where he said, we're going to use him a lot this year. Now, I don't trust – and I've heard nothing since. Nothing in camp, nothing about good production, good speed, nothing. Haven't seen him in preseason, so I don't really see him taking a noticeable enough jump for me to take him at that number where I'm looking for a high upside guy. I don't think he beats his 2019 season, I guess it was, or 2020, and that's what you want when you're taking him there. You want that upside guy. I think there's better pieces around that same number. You said, like, what? You said 120 something he was going around? Yeah, 125. Yeah, I mean, there's your boy Rachaad White right after him. There's, Alexander Madison. I'd rather have him as a handcuff versus Nyheim Hines. He's shown that when he's on the field, he's a running back one. There's Michael Gallup, who looks prime for, he's going to start slow, but he looks prime for a big year. So those are the kind of guys I would rather take at that range because I think they have a higher ceiling. And at that point, you're taking pure ceiling.
So I'll just start off with, you said it's one comment, and you are not sleuthing the training camp banter as much as me, I don't guess, because it's not one statement. All of the beat
nobody got
writers,
time for that.
all of the players. I got time for it. Okay, I'm following. If you don't follow 32 beat writers on Twitter, it's the greatest source of information. I don't have to search everybody's name every day. I can just pop it up. It's going to pop up most of the players. Here's my thing. Nyheim Hines, we've already seen him have an RB2 season playing as second fiddle type guy. But this goes more for me back to the new quarterback in Matt Ryan and seeing what he likes to do. And maybe this means there will be more of a passing game for Jonathan Taylor. I don't think so, though. I think Hines is going to get those. And when we look at last year, Cordero Patterson coming out of nowhere, he had 70 targets last year, or 69, excuse me, and he wasn't really running routes that much. But they're going to have Nyheim Hines running routes. They're putting Hines and Taylor on the backfield. And when you come out in that personnel, right, you're coming out in 22 personnel, 2 running backs, 2 tight ends. You're giving defenses headaches, and then they put Hines in the slot. I think you're going to see that a lot this year, and I think Matt Ryan is going to pepper him. I guess here's my other thing. Everybody's looking at who's going to be wide receiver 2 for the Colts, right? Pittman's established in the 1. Everybody is bearing and hoping for Paris Campbell to finally have the breakout season. People forget he was the receiver to have at Ohio State when Terry McLaurin came in. Ashton Doolin is getting a lot of praise, right? And then we have guys like Alec Pierce, the rookie. I think Nyheim Hines could be the second leading receiver on this team. And if that's the case, this isn't a handcuff. This is a RB2 on your team. Taking the chance there at RB 125 to me, especially in redraft, is a great value. Jonathan Taylor's going to get the workload, but that also makes him susceptible for injury. And Hines at that point, I think, comes a weekly RB1 upside. So I think Hines has more value than RB 125. And to be completely honest, I thought by this point he would be higher. The fact that he's going so late, I think zero RB truthers will be all over that this year. And I like Hines at RB 125. Any rebuttal there?
There's some good points there. Yeah, I don't see Matt Ryan. My viewing doesn't check the ball down all that often. I think he's going to want to show out this year. I think, but I don't think that particularly means that Nyheim Hines won't get targets. I think he will. But I'd rather take Michael Gallup there, knowing that he's going to get a ton of targets in a high-powered offense. So I'd rather get somebody higher up earlier with a running back and then get my wide receiver there. I'm not saying I don't hate, like you said, it's a strong word. I don't hate Nyheim Hines. I think he's a good player, and I think he's a fine pick there, but I don't think he's going to be what people want him to be. Then he's not a secret, which is what people picking him there for, like, oh, I'm smarter than you. I picked Nyheim Hines in whatever, the 11th round. Like, look how smart I am, right? I'd even prefer Gainwell over Hines this season, later in the draft. So,
I'm a Gainwell. I love me some Gainwell. Love the prospect coming out of college, and Miles Sanders missing all these practices is just raising the bar for me. I think Gainwell. I think in drafts people are reaching on Gainwell more than letting him sit at ADP. But I don't hate that either. All right, let's go to the next one here. We're going to spin our fun little wheel here as it spins. I'm excited to talk about some of these guys, so I can't wait to see who it pops up here. Let's go with, this one's going to be a fun one. How about some A.J. Brown action?
Oh, man. I just got to be hating all the time. I'm going to have no love.
Yeah, you just got to tell
these are all my haters.
All the haters. It's okay. We'll come back around and people will get to see how wrong you are about the guys you like to. Don't worry about it. It's okay. A.J. Brown. I'll start with this one, okay?
Yeah.
Love me some A.J. Brown this season. It took me a minute to get on board. It did. I'm not going to lie. I'm a Titans fan. Can't help it. Like, just born into it, I guess. I was at the first practice they had inside of Nissan Stadium. I think at that time it was Bridgestone or whatever. I love the red and the blue and the Titans, right? So it took me a minute to get on board with this. And then I thought, he's going there and Devontae Smith's there. And then I thought, he's going there and it's Jalen Hurts. But the more I started digging into this and taking away the preseason camp hype, because there is hype with this one. Like, legitimately, I saw somebody the other day say he was going to have 11 billion targets. I don't think
that
that's
was you.
possible. No,
that was you that said that.
No, it was a legit article writer, I swear. If it were me, I would have said all the targets. He's just going to get all of them. There's a guy that'll listen to the show and say Zach Pascal will get the rest of them. But I don't know how much rest is going to go around. Here's my biggest thing that's made me go, I'm sticking A.J. Brown no matter what. I think there's two things. I think A.J. Brown is going to want to prove something this year. He's going to want to prove, because he just cannot let it die that the Titans traded him. Even though he forced his way out, and he don't want to say that story. That's not what he wants to go with. He wants to act like he was forced out. He's going to want to prove something this year. I think the Eagles have one of the easiest schedules, and they're also going to be in some shootouts. And the main point, though, if you go back and watch Jalen Hurts' film, and you can watch Jalen Hurts' film from his days at Alabama, he has always keyed in on his wide receiver one. If he has a guy that consistently can get open against man coverage, he's always keyed in on that guy. And Devontae Smith, although I think has a great future and was a very talented receiver, is a very talented receiver, he's a zone beater. He's a guy that gets in between the zone. He stretches the field. And he wasn't that man breaker. He had trouble with press last year a little bit in his rookie season. Maybe that gets better. A.J. Brown was in the top 5 of receivers for PFF last year, beating man coverage. His quarterback now, Jalen Hurts, was in the top 5 when passing against man coverage. And you go back to his days at Alabama. He very much made Jerry Jeudy a first-round pick. He stared him down. No, sorry. Calvin Ridley first. He stared down Calvin Ridley in his time there. You go back and watch Calvin Ridley's senior season, and it was literally Jalen Hurts staring. Like, it didn't matter. Give him 15 seconds in the pocket because he had it with those Alabama behemoths. He was staring down Calvin Ridley. Okay, he goes to Oklahoma. Oklahoma receiver was CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb had all of the catches his senior year or junior year, whatever it was, because he was stared down. I think he could do the same thing with A.J. Brown. And whereas most of the time you don't want that from your quarterback, A.J. Brown can get open. And he can get open a lot. I just think he's going to be a volume player this year. If he can stay healthy, I think A.J. Brown has top 3 receiver potential, and you're getting him in the late second right now.
Yeah, but that's my biggest concern. You said it right there, is volume. Like, the passing volume for Philadelphia, I don't think it's going to be that high. So, like, even if he gets 30% of the targets, 35% of the targets, what did Hurts throw last year? Like, not all that many. And I don't think they're going to change it coming into this year because it was so successful down the stretch. He only threw it 430 times last year. I mean, that is low. So, barely scraping 100 targets. He's a short yardage guy for what I've seen as far as like his ADOT where he catches a ball. I mean, maybe that's a product of Tennessee's offense. Maybe it'll be different in Philadelphia. I don't think he's bad, but I think he's a fine dynasty piece. Like, if you have him in dynasty, like, he's a good hold. But like, at that range, we're looking Ezekiel Elliott, we're looking Keenan Allen, like Kyle Pitts, Mike Evans. Those are guys. I would take every single one of those guys over A.J. Brown this season in redraft. Because you want to talk about volume, find me more volume than those 4 guys right there. And they're at their respective.
Real quick. Talk about volume real quick. If you look at what the Eagles did the first 7 weeks of last season, Kevin Stefanski, the head coach for the Eagles? Might be throwing out a random name and it not be. Is Stefanski with the Browns?
Yeah,
I might be
wrong.
wrong.
With the Browns.
Okay. Eagles head coach, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, comes from a passing system. They want to throw the ball. And I think they wanted to last year. But I think they got
7-7.
Huh?
Or something. Didn't they go 0-7?
No, they didn't go 0-7.
It was a pretty bad start.
It was a rough start, but I think what happened was that so they had 2 things, right? They had an offensive lineman go down, which hurt them. I don't remember which one it was. But I think they came to realize, okay, we don't have an alpha receiver. You had Devontae Smith, who was in his rookie season. You had Jalen Reagor, and you had Quez Watkins, who is a deep threat, but probably isn't much more than that at this point in his career. He was a second-year receiver, right? They didn't have an alpha guy that could beat man coverage, which is what that scheme needs. But if you look at the first 7 weeks, and this is part of the reason I'm so high in Gainwell for this year, because you look at his first 7 weeks, it was all kinds of targets as well. You had 35 attempts, 23 in week 2, that was against San Francisco, 39, 48, 37, 26, 34, and then you had that stretch where it was like, okay, we're going to pound the rock. And then they ended the season again with 26, 29, 26. I don't say they have to pass the ball 40 times a year, but I think they're going to be in that 26 to 35 attempts per game. And if they're averaging that, there's plenty of targets for A.J. Brown. I think A.J. Brown averages 7 targets game this year. That's in my projection.
Yeah, but it's not. But that's not the volume I want from the guy I'm drafting in that position. Keenan Allen isn't going to get 7 targets. He's going to get 8 catches a game. I want that. You know what I mean? Like, Keenan Allen's going to get 10 targets, 7 catches. A.J. Brown's going to get 7 targets, 5 catches,
who
maybe.
throws the ball more, or who threw the ball less than the Eagles are going to this year? The Titans. And A.J. Brown always found a way to get a bunch of targets there.
I'm not saying, but I'm just saying there are players in that range I prefer, specifically from a volume standpoint. Mike Evans is going to have Mike Evans.
Okay.
He could be the wide receiver 1 this year, potentially. Given the mess of the wide receivers that are there, like Julio, I'm not worried about him. Gage is hurt already, and he's still going to be fine. Obviously, Brady, once he's done with the Masked Singer, he's going to just go automatic.
Is he going to be in the goat costume? Is that what's going to happen?
Has to be. Or he'll be like a something weird, like a pirate.
He needs to be a dolphin because of all the off-season talk that he was going to be a part of.
That would be banner, yeah. But Mike Evans is going to get all the high-value targets too. Like, he's going to get all the red zone looks. So that I want him over A.J. Brown. I want Keenan Allen over A.J. Brown because I want that offense over the Eagles. Zeke Elliott, if you take a Justin Jefferson or Chase in the first round, then let me get Zeke Elliott in the third where he's going. I just prefer people in that range at cost versus A.J. Brown. I don't think he'll have a bad year. I think wide receiver top 3 is aggressive.
I think that's his upside. I think
it could be.
It's so hard to I will say this. I think it is so hard to predict wide receivers preseason because if you had to pick only 12 guys that'll be wide receiver 1s this year, it's so hard because there's so many other guys that have potential to be wide receiver 1s.
Oh yeah. Yeah, nobody had Cooper Kupp as a wide receiver 1 last year. And he was the wide receiver 1. So I agree. There's a lot of situations, and there's a huge landscape change for far as quarterbacks and receiver groups this year. So we're flying blind right now. We're doing best we can, but there's a lot of high-profile movement this offseason that's going to change that landscape. That's why I like Mike Evans, because that's one of the only maintained top-level quarterback and wide receiver combos outside of Stafford and Kupp. And Justin Jefferson and Cousins, he's top 4 or top 5 as far as that's concerned. So,
a little sidebar, really quick, as we're talking about receivers in this range. Michael Pittman isn't too far from this, and he might get brought up in conversation a little bit later. But this is something I've thought about with him. When you look at the wide receiver 1 for Matt Ryan over the years, Julio Jones was in that role, right? They've always had a lot of catches, a lot of yards, but touchdowns haven't always been there. He tends to go with his tight ends and running backs in the red zone for some reason, and maybe that's because the guy's bracketed. I don't know. Does that scare you at all on Pittman? Because I think we're both pretty high on Pittman.
Yeah, not particularly because I don't think that was his game even last year, where he had a pretty big year. You weren't looking. He had a questionable touchdown that cost me 1 week, but he only had. Does he have 6 touchdowns last year?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, 6. So, I don't see him regressing. He's going to get 6 to 10, and that's fine. He's going to get probably 1,200 yards, probably close to 100 catches. I mean, like you say, Ryan peppers his guys, 160 targets, 150 targets, 145 targets. So, and this is good of an offense as Ryan has ever played behind, as far as line and running back help. I know he had Freeman for a couple of years there, but Jonathan Taylor is another level to Freeman. So Pittman is going to have opportunity because you're going to have to guard against the run, and so he's going to be in one-on-one coverage a lot of times, or he's going to have opportunities to eat, and he's shown last season he could do that. Given and then Carson Wentz is starting the ball, and he was still going up and making plays. So I think he's going to have a plenty good year. And like you say, I would prefer to take Ezekiel Elliott in this range and then get Pittman on the wraparound.
Yeah,
and then just let somebody else take Brown.
You just bumped Nyheim Hines up another round for me by mentioning Freeman. I forgot about that. He got pepper with targets too. So just saying. All right, let's
I hope you take him in the third.
No, my worst draft pick ever was a third-round pick one time that I don't even talk about. Javonte Williams is our next guy. I guess we're just going to keep talking about guys you hate, Ian.
Yeah, I guess so.
I promise.
I sound like a negative, super negative person right now.
It'll come back around and end with me being negative, right? Maybe we can change each other's mind on one of these players. We only got 3 players left, and let's see. They're all players that you love and I hate. So, I mean, that's how it's going to go. All right, so the last one for me, Javonte Williams. Ian, do you want to start off with this one? Why are you down on Williams at ADP? I think he's going mid-second round right now.
Yeah, I like the talent. I mean, he was electric when he got in the backfield. But to me, why re-sign a guy like Melvin Gordon, who played really well, was healthy last year? Why re-sign and pay him a decent amount of money for that age of a running back if you're not going to utilize him? And, I don't think it's going to be 70-30. I believe that Williams will get a bump, but I don't think it'll be enough to be like, oh, wow, he's going to be the running back one, kind of the opportunity that people are in love with Javonte Williams. Like, the talent is there. The opportunity isn't there yet. I think next year it will be. And I think you could – I know I'm like projecting out way big time, but I think he's a guy that might drop next year, even if he has an okay year this year, like a back end wide running back one, like last year, high end running back two. I think he might drop lower, and that's when I'll want him next year. When it's the second year, somebody's took him early, and everybody's kind of upset and bitter and twisted, and you know how fantasy players are. I'm never drafting him again, so he drops a little bit, and then you're like, oh, let me get a little bit of Javonte, and then Melvin Gordon doesn't get
It's like Cam Akers last year. Everybody was like, he was going to be like a late first before the injury, right? Everybody thought he was going to be like a late first, mid second, and then now this year he's fallen way off.
Him and J.K. Dobbins too. Give me all that. That's kind of to my argument. I'd rather again get a higher guy that I'm sort of more confident in right now in this range, like the back end of the second round, like Mike Evans, like Debo, like AJ Brown even, and then you get your running back later in Ezekiel Elliott, in Cam Akers, in J.K. Dobbins, one of those guys who has this very similar opportunity. J.K. Dobbins and Ezekiel Elliott have a better opportunity, in my opinion, than Javonte. They have less competition. They have, and I think my other argument against Javonte this year is Russ. They're bringing him in. He has all the weapons in the world. Rest in peace, Tim Patrick. That's real sad, but they still have a crazy amount of weapons. They're going to throw the ball a lot. They're not going to run the ball as often as they did last year, I don't think. So, and then who gets the goal line? Is it Javonte? Is it Gordon? Is it Sherrod? So then you're rolling the dice. Last year, they were only separated by 15 or 20 points. And at the start of the year, it was the same kind of talk as it is this year. Oh, Javonte's going to get 60%. The projections were.
Come on. It was not the same last year, Ian.
I looked it up. I looked at the projections for 2021, and it was very, very close to what they are right now.
Projections and coach talk is what I'm saying. There is. So here's the thing. All that's fine and dandy, and you made some fair points that I won't say are outlandish like normal. But here's the thing. There is no doubt in anybody's mind in Denver right now who their RB1 is, including Melvin Gordon, who had to eat some humble soup the other day and tell reporters they know who they want their guy to be. And you say substantial money for a backup. They let Melvin Gordon test the open market. They said, go sign with another team. We don't care. And then he came groveling back and they said, okay, we'll give you $2.5 million. with the only guarantee of that was $1 million. He literally got the veteran minimum of a contract basically with incentives, right? So all of your points right there are kind of slanted in the sense that we're looking at last year, and it's not last year. There were people that were super high on Javonte last year. I will say that. The biggest difference in him and the Akers or Dobbins is he's not coming off a season-ending injury or a major injury at that. He's not still in rehab mode. That I think Dobbins and Akers will be even more values next year, because I think that they will flash, especially Akers. I'm a little bit higher on Akers than Dobbins, but I think that they're still not 100%, and I will be all over them next year in drafts, I think, as long as they don't get drafted over anything crazy like that. I mean, Dobbins had a massive knee injury. I mean, I'm more worried about that. He tore 2 different ligaments, right? And he's still trying to come back. And when you look at guys at what they come back from a year after, I'm sorry, I'm not going to make this all about Dobbins. Back to Javonte Williams. I think you're going to see an 70-30, 80-20 split with the carries. I think Gordon will be a guy that can come in and give him snaps. They wanted to bring Javonte along slowly last year. I think the other thing was it was a different coaching staff, an old school coaching staff. He wanted to make them as it was almost sickening how even he wanted to make it last year. The one game that we see Javonte get all the carries, he's an RB1 that week. He was the RB1 that week, not just a RB1 that week. So I think when you look at Javonte Williams, you have a guy that if Melvin Gordon had not signed there, he's going at the end of the first round, and you're getting a value on him because the guy came back who they were like, okay, you can come back. This isn't, and Ian, don't start. I'm not trying to go down this rabbit hole. This is not Washington saying, oh no, let's ruin a relationship to make sure we get J.D. McKissic back. It's not that, okay? It was go see whoever you want to go with. We really don't care. When his options weren't that good, he came back to where he at least knew the offense, and they said, or at least knew the team, because the offense is different, right? And he said, okay. But he has already come out and said, yeah, I'm sorry. He's the one. That's who they want their guy to be. And he's eating some humble soup with that. Gordon will be a great back if Javonte gets hurt. Javonte has RB1 potential, and you're getting him in the second round right now. I think it's good value. I feel yeah, I'm done.
We'll see.
We'll see. He said, hey, okay. He's like writing this. Ian's got a notepad of just Evan takes I think are wrong, and he's just like waiting. He's wrote that one down.
Yeah, it's 3 journals at this point. And you should see all the green ticks.
Oh, come on. All right. He's hoping to finally get me this year on Gibson, despite the fact that Gibson's been an RB1 the last 2 seasons.
No.
So you took 2 L's on Gibson. Oh, here we go. A guy you'll take an L on this year. It's Mr. Damien Harris. I think you called him Damian Smith last year. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
He was good. I'll say this. Damien Harris, you were one of the few last year that were dead on with him. Even though you traded him away in a league. Yeah, you got some pretty good value in that trade.
Value. I'll always trade someone at value.
You got good value there. So Damien Harris, you like the value. What was his ADP? I gotta pull it back up.
This one is a gray area for me because you hate him, and I'm able to, as you said, as a savant when it comes to the BBRBs. You know, shout out to my boy James White. He will be missed. But I think that there is potential there. He's getting a bit of a hard rap right now. I'm not sure I'm buying into the dialogue that's being spun in the media. He's going ADP 71 right now. So right after Miles Sanders, right before Kenneth Walker, that Ranger running back, Kareem Hunt, etc.
Is that it?
Well, no, I'm waiting for you to tear him down, and then I'm going to pick him back up off the dirt, let the people know why you're wrong, and then we can move on to someone I actually love.
So I know, right? We go to the guys you love, and it's still just somebody that's like, yeah, okay, I love them. Like, okay.
Yeah, I'm very non-committal.
So what I will say is this, right? With a former defensive coordinator calling the plays, however you spin it in New England this year, we could all be wrong on any. Like I am not gonna smack the gavel down for any New England player, positive or negative, this year, because I have no freaking clue what Bill Belichick is in his lab cooking up. Like I don't know if I should hate it or love it, or I mean, if the man wins 8 or 9, 10 games this year, just stop, because he has a defensive coordinator calling his plays right now.
Well, yeah, and that's only because his sort of methed out son is on the other sideline or whatever.
Sorry, that was disturbing for everybody, including me. I'm not watching that back. So here's what I will say is Damien Harris has all kinds of Sony Michel sprinkled on him right now. And what I mean by that is a guy that, like, okay, he's there, but we're not going to let you get paid next year. So either we're going to trade you or you're just going to get benched. And they're always, I will say this, one thing I really respect about the Patriots, and you can say respect, but it probably hurts some guys, is they're always looking. Vrabel said this, younger and cheaper. Younger and cheaper. We want younger and cheaper. And Damien Harris, if he were to have another year like he had last year, is not going to be younger and cheaper either or the following year. He's going to be more expensive, and you're going to have to re-sign him. And I just don't think that's what the Patriots want to do. So I think they drafted all those running backs. They have some depth now. I think their plan was to see if one of those guys stick and then have a potential to trade Harris. That rumor has already been floated out there in the middle of camp.
Right.
So I'm a little nervous on Harris. Now, if Harris were to land somewhere else in a better situation, scrap this whole take. None of that matters. But as a BBRB, Bill Belichick running back, I'm nervous because I think Stevenson, although he had a limited role last year, still had a bigger role than most rookies have for Patriots. And I think that step just gets that much heightened this year. Ty Montgomery's interesting. Just Ty Montgomery on any other team I care nothing about, but it's Bill Belichick, okay? Edelman at one point was an afterthought, and so was the Amendola, and so was
Excuse me. His official title is Danny Playoff.
Danny Playoff. I'm sorry, whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, all of these guys at one point were afterthoughts, and that's what makes it so frustrating looking at this room. But at RB 70 or at 71 in ADP, I just want to pull up real quick. All right, let's look at some of the guys that we can get around there. I forget who it was. I'd rather have Nyheim Hines this year. I feel more confident in what Nyheim Hines will give me this year than what Damien Harris will. Because for me, it's a coin flip. We just don't know. I guess that's probably my bigger thing. This is not an indictment on Damien Harris as much as it is as I don't freaking know. I like it in backfields where you are unsure. I think it's always better to take the guy that's cheaper or cheapest.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if I'm drafting my fantasy team right now in that range, if I'm going running back, if I'm like set on getting a running back in the mid 70s, I'm going to get Kareem Hunt. I'm going to be real happy.
Yeah.
But the reason why I'm willing to argue this point, your hate, is because all the trade rumor hype was pre-James White retiring.
It was.
We lose a huge piece of our backfield there. If James White didn't retire, which I knew that was going to happen as soon as we re-signed him, just because that's what Belichick does. If our guys get a really bad injury, he'll give them a deal, and then let him retire and let him walk off. And one of our guys, not like a 1 or 2 year stopgap guy, like Gronk did his first time. Edelman, all those guys, they retire. They get their contract, then they retire. Everybody's happy. So if James White didn't retire, I think he does get traded. But I don't think that's a better situation for him because I don't think there's a good landing spot for a guy like Damien Harris right now from a fantasy perspective.
So after 71, right now on Sleeper ADP, Darnell Mooney, Rashad Bateman, Gabe Davis, if that's your type of thing. I mean, it gets a little murky after that.
No, I agree. What I'm just saying is, I think, to your point, he's on his last year of his deal.
Yeah.
I don't think he's really established himself well enough right now for a team to really go, unless there's an injury somewhere, to really go out and pursue him and give us what we think he's worth. So I see us milking him for one more season and then just letting him go, letting him walk. Like you say, then you save the legs on Ramondre, on our other Harris, and on Pierre Strong. We save their legs a little bit. We bring in an older veteran like Ty Montgomery. We save their legs a little bit. So then come next season, we have a fresh start. We have Ramondre leading the pack, and then we have Pierre Strong and Kevin Harris, assuming they establish themselves and fit the mantra. Then we have our three guys. J.J. Taylor is still there, kind of a bum. He'll be a good special teamer, kind of like our Brandon Bolden role.
How many running backs do they keep this year on the roster, on the 53?
Well, we typically use at least one in special teams. So they'll move one there, then only play special teams. Yeah. I think that'll be Pierre Strong this season, potentially. So I would say we run Harris, assuming he stays, Harris, Ramondre, and Ty on game day. We only run 3 on game day.
So you try to
Harris.
They try to get Kevin Harris to the practice squad.
Yeah, Damien Harris was a healthy scratch his entire rookie season, pretty much. I think outside of one game. So yeah. I think we do the same thing with Kevin Harris this year, or one of the two, Pierre or Kevin. I think Pierre's a better special teamer, so I think he might play that role, or J.J. Taylor will play that role, one of the two. But so that's why I think Damien Harris. I don't think I will be targeting, but I don't think he's as bad of an asset as people are thinking. I think he's still going to get our goal line looks, assuming he stays. I think he's going to get the bulk of the first, one and down. We could see a situation like Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams with him and Ramondre, which I don't know how that'll look from our fantasy perspective, because I don't think we're as good in offense as Denver were last year. So there's that.
All right. We got 2 more guys. We really could just do a coin flip, but why not spin? One more again.
Yeah, well, one I actually love. Let's go with that.
I hope it's who. There we go. Here he is.
Yes.
Mr. Etienne. I can just drop the spinner wheel now. Now I can pop up Sleeper and actually not just glance at my phone. So you asked me earlier, how can you hate Etienne in the 4th round? And I said, you're going to have to wait for that. So would you like me to do the honors first on this?
Yeah. I always like you leading off and me telling everybody why you're wrong. So
we've already talked about running backs that are late round values. And for me, I like I think there is a dead zone with running back. And I will say this, it's really going to be a choppy situation all the way around, right? I mean, there's so many guys from the 4th round to the 8th round with running back that you're like, I see an avenue for him to finish over him. Chase Edmonds is a guy that if he does get the bulk of those carries, he could be, a borderline RB1. I think his ceiling's probably RB2, but I mean, still, he's got a high potential. Etienne, for me, we just haven't seen it yet, I guess is my thing. I do not view him a 1st-round running back like in the sense that he's a can't-miss prospect because of who drafted him last year, and they're not there anymore. I think when I look at Etienne, he's got an interesting skill set, but we just haven't seen him do it yet. And my thing is, if you're drafting, I think you're drafting him at his ceiling right now, I guess is my biggest point. And I never want to draft somebody at their ceiling. James Robinson, Achilles tear in week 16, whatever, he's going to be ready for week 1. And whether that's smart or bad, I'm not saying I want him on my roster. He's going to take opportunities from Etienne. And I'm sorry, but I don't love that Jags offense. Who is the guy that is taking the top off and not making teams put 11 in the box? Or not, you know what I mean. 10 in the box, 9 in the box, whatever. Like, we dare you to beat us passing the ball, and we're going to put pressure in Trevor Lawrence's face until he proves he can't. I think this for me is more about, can Trevor Lawrence take a step? Because if he can take a step, then yeah, Etienne could have a solid season. Absolutely. But there are too many question marks for me to love that value. And I think this is someone, I will say this, that I've slowly shifted on. Part of that is, you said fourth round. I don't think you can get to Etienne in the fourth round because people are reaching on him. People are like, I'm afraid that guy's going to get him in the fourth round, so I have to take him here in the third. I've seen Etienne mocked at the end of the second round, which is bizarre to me. So, again, I think that you're drafting at peak value. Yes, Etienne is a guy that could get targets, but you look at the first preseason game going up against scrubs, and he was averaging like 2 yards a carry. And he looked explosive on some plays, and other plays he was tackled 3 yards in the backfield. Not necessarily his fault, but what excites you about the Jags O-line? What excites you about the Jags receiver room? Who, by the way, their wide receiver one right now might be Zay Jones. I know, don't like just sweat off your chair and pass out off excitement. Their tight end right now is a guy in Evan Ingram who is still dropping balls, and Dan Arnold. I mean, none of these guys inflict fear. So even if Etienne turns out to be the guy, okay, he's the focus of defenses every single week. How's that going to work out? And I will hand it off to you.
Okay, so one of my arguments is, look at the Detroit Lions last year, right? I would say arguably a very similar situation.
No.
To the Jacksonville Jaguars this year.
No.
No, just no.
The Detroit Lions graded out as the number 2 overall offensive line in the league last year. Yes, the team wasn't great.
I'm talking about at the start of the season.
Okay.
I'm not talking about how they played.
Okay.
At the start of last season, no receiver core, garbage quarterback, garbage defense, and DeAndre Swift. That was what we were looking at, right? But DeAndre Swift, what can he do? He's a good pass catcher. He's electric. He's highly efficient. He can break off big plays. He's a great running back. That's what I look at with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Only the biggest difference is DeAndre Swift last year was going in the early second. Etienne in a similar situation, in my opinion, maybe even slightly better because he has that relationship with Trevor Lawrence, elite relationship, showed out in college. Arguably I know Najee was the guy like because of Alabama, but arguably coming out of that draft, probably the best as far as athlete running back coming out of that draft, I would say, of the guys who got drafted last year. He came out, obviously got hurt, which was terrible, and luckily it wasn't as bad as an Achilles or an ACL. Linz he's had plenty of time to recover. I'm not concerned about that. I think people have faded him a little bit because of that, which is why his ADP is where it is, close to 40. But so for me, the reason why I like him is, and I'm not a big proponent for going wide receiver early, but like I could get a Justin Jefferson or a Jamar Chase or Stephon Diggs in the first round. Get a couple of my guys who I quite like in the second round. There's running backs like Kamara, Barkley, who have opportunity to be RB1s. Get another really good receiver in round 3, and then get Etienne on the wraparound in round 4. And I have what I think is great PPR running backs, top elite receivers, and have a nice balance to start the draft. That's why I like him, because that value, he is a pretty good, like you say, the dead zone after him is real. Like there's outside of J.K. Dobbins, there's really nothing I like until maybe A.J. Dillon way at like 60. So like two or three rounds later. And you have A.J. Dillon, who I like as a player. But so that's where I think he's the last viable, can be a running back one that I didn't have to take in the first round.
So so you got Josh Jacobs after him. There is some question marks there.
Absolute garbage. I want absolutely nothing to do. I wouldn't take him I maybe would take him in the 7th. That's about it. They don't even want him to play him. They didn't pick up his 5th. They drafted another guy. They had Kenyon Drake's back there. The dude is bum.
Okay. So we can skip that. Whatever. There's Dobbins, Elijah Mitchell. There are some question marks. There's question marks on all these guys, right? I mean, that's why they're in this part of the draft. I just think that people are drafting. Etienne's not lasting to the 4th round. He's not. He's a third-round player. Like, people
Well,
are
his
going to
ADP is 38, so that's fourth round, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get him at 38,
39.
okay. I don't think he ever goes. I don't. I think people will draft him over David Montgomery. I think people will draft him over James Conner. Like, there's people that are going to reach. If you're sitting at 3-8 and you're worried that he's not going to get back to you at 4-5 in a 12-team league, you snag him at 3-8 and think, oh, I'm just going to get. Like, that's what's happening in these drafts that we are seeing, that you can go look at people's drafts. And so I understand that's what Sleeper ADP says. I don't think it will. And maybe that's a bad argument because we were saying ADP. So I think there's something to be worried about with a new coaching staff, not the people that drafted him there. And James Robinson is a threat. They are calling James Robinson the RB1 coming off an Achilles. They are literally calling him the RB1.
Okay, but that's not. We saw what happened with Cam Akers, and Cam Akers, no offense to James Robinson, Cam Akers is a way better athlete than James Robinson.
Absolutely.
Prospected way better, and he came back around the same time scale and looked like a bum at the end of last season. Did he or did he not? James Robinson is not their running back. James Robinson is a sixth round pick. They don't have the investment. James Robinson doesn't have the relationship with Trevor Lawrence. Lawrence
built it last year, but he built it last year.
Not on the same level. He had 4 years with Travis Etienne. If Trevor Lawrence has to dump off, has to run for his life like we think he will with that offensive line, he is going to check it down to Travis Etienne. I would not be surprised to see him get 70 targets.
And that's what you hope for. So I get the argument. I'm not knocking them fully. I just think there are more question marks there than people are willing to talk about. So we'll go to this last guy, and this has been a fun little topic of discussion for us over the last year.
You've been wrong so many times on this guy. I love it.
Sometimes,
and then you spend the last 5 months trying to trade him from me.
You know, I'm just trying to take a burden off your hands, all right?
Higgins.
Higgins. Okay. So, can I put a disclaimer at the top of this?
Go ahead.
I love the talent. That's my disclaimer.
Okay.
I love the talent. But talent only gets you so far when the quarterback's best friend's on your team. T. Higgins, to me, kind of has the same upside as Allen Robinson, and you can get Allen Robinson a full round or 2 rounds later. So I'm going to just do a little preface there and let you tell everybody why you love him at ADP right now.
Yeah, I mean, for me, so last season, even with Burrow's best friend on the field, Higgins had more targets, more yards, more receptions than Chase on a game per game basis when they were both on the field together. Obviously, Higgins missed some time, so Chase got some freebies there when he wasn't really attracting the same looks. But obviously, Tyler Boyd had some good games there too. My biggest thing is for what you're paying for Higgins versus what you're paying for Chase. I want a piece of that offense, right? I want a piece of that passing attack. So I want the cheaper piece, kind of like you said with the running backs in New England. Give me the cheaper piece because who knows, right? The biggest thing for me last year, obviously Chase was elite. He had so many big play touchdowns. T. Higgins is really the look come the red zone, come the scoring zones. So of those, I think there was 6 or 7 that were like 40-yard plus touchdowns. So if even half of those go away, that's probably 3 more touchdowns to T. Higgins. All of a sudden, that's another 18 points, another 3 catches, whatever, 20 points. 20 points is a lot in a season. It bumps you up from, what did he finish last year? Like wide receiver 14 or something like that?
Mm-hmm. No, 17. It depends, right? If you're standard, he was 17. PPR, he was wide receiver 24.
Okay, so but missing games. So so you add 20, 30 points there. All of a sudden, he bumps up and he's a high end wide receiver too, which is what I expect him to be. I expect them both to meet in the middle a little bit. I could very well see them both being wide receiver 1s this year. Like Chase, I expect to be a wide receiver 1, and I think there is an avenue there for Higgins to be, if not wide receiver 12, be like 14 or 15. And, I think we spoke a little off camera. Your argument around Pittman around the same price, fair enough. I like that. The difference is, and I know you like to say touchdown dependent, whatever, but at the end of the day, touchdowns will win you weeks. They will win you championships. So if I have a guy who's also a volume play, and I think Higgins proved on multiple occasions last season he's a volume play too, then let me get the touchdown upside that maybe a Pittman doesn't have, or maybe a Deontay Johnson doesn't have, that they're going to be at 6 or 7, whereas Higgins could be 14. I could very well see him getting 14 touchdowns this season. Yeah. So that's why, I mean, like you say, the talent is unarguable. That offense is elite. So I just want a piece of it. So if you're not going to go Mixon, and I'm not sure how I sit on Mixon, but you're going to have to take one of them in the first round, Mixon or Chase. I'd much rather spread a little bit and then pick somebody else and then get Higgins a few rounds later.
So here's my thing with Higgins, right? And the running joke last year that he's mentioning, and I would hate to say it's a joke, even though he probably already knew it, was that Higgins was touchdown dependent. I was trying to trade for the guy, and we like to do this thing back and forth, right? He knew I valued him because I was coming for him. But he did, after the first 2 weeks he had the injury, he didn't score another touchdown again until week 12, right? So, I mean, that was a thing, and he never had more than, even in PPR, never had more than 13.5 points in that stretch. So my thing there is, when you're drafting a guy that high, you need him to have week winning potential for you. And great, he was steady Eddie, but he wasn't winning you weeks with that production. I mean,
he won you a championship though. If you had your final in week 16.
I mean, yeah, for sure. Like, so again, I'm talking about that stretch though, but you got to make it in the playoff first.
No, yeah.
My thing with Higgins is, he quite possibly this year could be the highest ever drafted wide receiver 2 in an offense, unless you are going out on a limb and saying he's the wide receiver 1 in that offense, which I think is a hot take. Now, could he have comparable numbers? Maybe. But you mentioned the numbers last year. By God, he should have had better numbers last year. Chase was a rookie. And at the point that the quote-unquote rookie wall is supposed to hit, Higgins started having better numbers. Chase isn't a rookie anymore. And I think a second-year jump is very possible. Who does that impact? I do think Boyd takes a step back, so I don't know if it fully impacts Higgins. But this is a guy who's about to be the highest drafted wide receiver 2 in redraft leagues, maybe ever. I think the only comparison you might be able to make is Godwin a few years ago. He was being drafted like late into the second, early third, somewhat, and he was probably the wide receiver 2 on that offense. But there was an argument at that point that he was becoming the wide receiver 1 over Mike Evans. Mike Evans, small note, is probably one of the most disrespected guys in drafts every year. He just keeps putting up wide receiver 1 seasons, right? So
yeah, for sure.
I guess that's my thing, is when I look at this list, I can have so many guys that are wide receiver 1s on their team that have potential to outscore him so many rounds later. And not even, so Pittman's right behind him, so that's not really a fair argument because that's probably a coin flip for some people. But when I look at guys like, okay, and I know you're not high on McLaurin this year, but McLaurin's going to be the wide receiver 1 in his offense. No questions asked.
Carson Wentz. Move on.
Michael Pittman last year with Carson Wentz. You want to move on? Because he had a good season last year.
Wasn't a wide receiver 1, though.
No, but neither was Chase. I mean, neither was Higgins.
Correct.
So, again, I can get him later. DJ Moore, later. Again, quarterback situation, completely understand, but the volume's going to be there for DJ Moore to win you weeks. Mike Williams, although not the wide receiver 1 on his team, I would say Keenan Allen's still that guy. Mike Williams is going a full round and a half later, sometimes 2 rounds later. Cortland Sutton, Allen Robinson. I think all of these guys can outscore Higgins this year. And I think if you draft Higgins at his ADP right now, you need everything to go right. And again, that's just drafting guys at their ceiling. I'm going to do that in the first round. But as I go down the list, I want to make sure I'm not doing that. And so that's why at ADP currently, not a knock on the player. Absolutely, I think could be a wide receiver 2 this year, but I think I can get guys that have wide receiver 1 upside over him later in the draft. I think. So let me preface this. I think Darnell Mooney has a clearer path to having a better season than T. Higgins. And it's strictly from a volume. Darnell Mooney's going to get 30 to 40 more targets than Higgins this year. He nearly did last year.
Right, but it's about the value of those targets, right? So, like,
absolutely, but
I like Darnell Mooney.
Yeah,
but
so
I would be very, very, very surprised if he finished above T. Higgins for the season.
So I guess my thing is, it's kind of the same reason we fade quarterbacks a lot of the times. It's like, is the difference 4 or 5 rounds different? Or is it 3 rounds different? I think it's closer to 1 round to 2 rounds different, but you get to draft them 3 rounds later. That's kind of where I'm at with it. That's why a lot of people that play fantasy for a while, and some people draft quarterback early. I've done it. I try to mix it up, but I know you're a guy that drafts quarterback late, and it's because, okay, I may have the quarterback 12, but he's only going to score 30 points less than the quarterback 2 or 3 or whatever it is. So I guess it's that type of thing for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, with regards to that argument, it makes a little sense. Like, I prefer to have consistent players, and then I want to get the dart throws like super late or even off waivers, right? So,
yeah,
like last year, I mean, he didn't play, but I drafted a lot of Trey Lance last year, assuming he may get the job halfway through the season, and he would be, a high upside guy that cost me nothing, right? But like early on, I'm not much of a risk taker, so I want a guy on good offenses with good volume, whether that be, I don't care if you're the wide receiver 2, if on your offense, if your offense is elite, if your offense is the best. You want to talk about number 1 and 2 receivers in the same offense, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, both going in the first round for 3 or 4 years back to back to back to back, and they paid out every single time. Because why did Patrick Mahomes have to pass to anybody else? He didn't, because they were both one of them was open at all times.
Yeah,
I see a very similar situation in Cincinnati this year. He's not going to throw it to his tight ends. Why does he need to?
Are you projecting him to be a wide receiver 1 this year then? Are you projecting Higgins finish as a wide receiver 1?
Close.
Okay.
He could. I think for me,
have a career year.
For me, I think he's more likely to finish in the 12 to 16 range, which I'm more than happy to have that, because I think, and at that range, I can go 2 elite running backs in the first couple rounds, and then get T. Higgins, and then just stack like some consistent guys. I've won so many leagues by having all my wide receivers be just volume monsters, getting me 13 points every week.
Yeah.
And they're just stacking points. I'd rather have that than have a Tyreek Hill that has 40 points one week, 3 points the next week, 37 points the next week, 1 point. I'm like, I don't want that. Like, I want 15 to 16 points every. Correct. Exactly. Like, I want 15 to 16 points every single week. And if there's some spike weeks, bonus. But like you said, he had a stretch of 6 games or 7 games with no touchdowns where he was right in 13 points per game range with no touchdowns. And that was because, yeah, correct. And that was because Chase was getting all the attention. As a rookie, people were probably not as high on him as far as defensive adjustments. This season, he's going to get a lot more attention, which will open softer zones for T. Higgins. And I'm sorry, but like, T. Higgins is going to beat 90% of coverage because he's just a monster. So if you give him single coverage all game, he's going to eat. So I think, I don't think it's a bad argument, but I'd rather have the consistency of a guy like him versus the upside of a guy like Jalen Waddle or Devonta Smith a little bit later, because I don't know what they're going to do week to week. So that's where I'm at with T.
Fair arguments. All I know is we are all excited for redraft season now. We've been going with Dynasty, but now drafts are starting up. If your team drafted redraft 3 weeks ago, I'm sorry. But here we go. I don't think that we'll see or knock on wood, we won't see situations like a few years ago where guys get hurt like literally during.
That was
What was
horrible.
it? What was it? Was it when Andrew Luck retired? He retired literally in the middle of some people's redraft drafts.
My friend, one of my home league, my guy took him in like the third, fourth round. 20 minutes later, he retired. And he's just like, yo, what the heck? What do I do? Do I get this pick back? And the commissioner was like, no. Sorry, bro. Tough.
Sucks sometimes. Sucks.
So he had to take like some bum, like, because we were already in like the 13th round at this point. So he had nobody left. So he's just like, I think he took Brissett. And he was like, oh, whatever, I'll just take Brissett.
Brissett had a good couple weeks last year. All right, or that season. All right. So thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe. Please comment below your favorite segment from this episode and other players that you would like us to talk about. I'm looking over here instead of at the camera. How about that? Follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, or actually we're not on Facebook. It's like one of the only places I don't think we are.
We have a page, it's just quiet.
It's kind of there, but nothing's really there. Kind of looks like a scam page or something. Twitter,
like your fantasy ability.
Twitter is the place for FF's sake on Twitter. Look us up. Our individual Twitter handles are down there. I'm on the 4FF sake one way more than anything. Thanks for listening, and good night. Even though. Peace.